Aloha and welcome back to the So What podcast. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Koa. We met at an arts event a couple years back and kept in touch via social media. In the time since we met, he is an artist, has dived on his own artistic journey and sharing his brand. So I wanted to talk stories with him and just learn more about it. I think it's a really cool message that he's trying to promote, at least from what I can tell, but it's nothing like hearing it from the source. So with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Koa. Koa, if you could, please introduce yourself.
Aloha, everybody. I'm Koa Kuroda. I am a skateboarder, artist, illustrator, graphic designer, videographer, a documenter, storyteller, connector. And for ethnicity-wise, I'm Hawaiian, Japanese, Filipino, German, Irish, and Scottish. So I'm more mixed than the plate lunch you guys get sometimes. So that's who I am, just at the surface level.
Right on. Hey, well, mahalo. I appreciate you taking the time to, reconnect here and also the willingness to just kind of share about your story. Because I know sometimes it's not always easy to talk about what you're doing, especially as artists. I think a lot of times, and then I didn't realize all the different things, and you illustrated, but I didn't know there was the video component and documentary component. And, you got a lot going on. You're very, multi-hyphenate and a lot of creative outlets, which is super awesome, and that resonates for me too. My core craft is writing, but over the years I've dove deep into painting as well as photography and just touching the surface of video editing, although it's really not my cup of tea. I appreciate you being here. If you could, in your words, what is your brand? What was the inspiration for your brand? The why? What are you trying to do?
A little context before I go into it. So it's like I had nothing much else to do. I was looking for a path. I wasn't where I wanted to be. I was like, okay, what can I do for myself? So I was like, oh, maybe I can start a company. I was going through a rough patch in my life at this time. I was about 22, so it's about 2 years ago. He's like, oh, it's so easy to start an LLC. Just go do it. Like by you signing up and paying for your GE license, it's gonna give you that kind of light a fire under you to actually do it, because like now you have it, you have the tool. And I was like, okay. So I like went into it. It was first called Imprint LLC, and I didn't do much with it. And I still have that LLC, but it slowly transformed by me having this like, oh, okay, it's like, what story do I want to tell? What do I want to do with my community and how I connect it? Which is where I got Gem Breakers. So it's like, what is a problem I want to solve for my community and in the world? A lot of people have trauma due to social conditioning, systemic oppression, and so much more different forms. So it's like, how do we overcome this, and what do I want to do? And hence the word Gem Breakers. And what I want Gem Breakers to be is community. What I value the most is community, skateboarding, and art and education. I've been working in education for 6 years. So I was like, how do I do this in my own way? How do I give myself a platform in order to give value and skills to myself and any generation before me or after me? So it's for everybody. It's like, even though I'm rooted in skateboarding, it does not just apply to skateboarders. It can be applied to everybody. Creatives, I listed off like a whole, I do videography, illustration. We have so much hats we wear, and it's like, how can I connect all of the communities and be under one umbrella? Because I feel within recent times, like at one point, all the communities was once connected and doing a lot of collaboration, yet we kind of lost sight from how we see one another and how we connect to one another. Without music, we wouldn't have album covers. Without art, skateboards wouldn't have the graphic designer on their decks. It's like, I want to show that there was options. Is also the reason why I started was because I grew up in this area where I was told just find a job, survive. That model isn't working, and it's like, you don't have to worry about what you want to do, because it's like, you're not gonna be able to make them. It's like that mindset was put onto me. It's like, just find a job, find a stable life, and don't worry too much about being bigger than who you are. I tried to convince myself I was something I didn't like.
Yeah, that's Well,
It's
it's a
a
lot to
lot.
unpack there.
Yeah. So
That's awesome though, and I appreciate you for sharing
mhm.
that. Like, mahalo.
I do go on tangents a lot. I apologize, and I'm still figuring out
No
gem.
apologies needed.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that because I'm still very much in the beginning stages, and what I realized from doing this as starting a LLC and wanting to transfer it into a nonprofit. So that's another way I'm taking gem breakers down.
Mm,
Is like at the foremost, your relationship with yourself has to be healed, and you have to know who you are and what you're passionate and love before you even get into it. And I've been getting reconnecting with myself, what I love, what I'm passionate about, and even with my ethnicities, because some of them I tried to run away from, in a sense. I try to be like, I'm not, I'm just like Hawaiian, Japanese, and Filipino, but like my other blood still in me. So it's like a lot of stuff I have to face myself, be vulnerable, and heal as I do it.
yeah, I think as an artist, right, one way to look at it when it comes to healing, like I'm a big believer that healing is lifelong. And it's kind of crazy. My name actually means healer.
Mm,
Jason, like if you trace like the meaning of it,
that's awesome.
I don't want to say Latin. Like I'm terrible at like, but it's kind of crazy. Like so, I've always been fascinated by healing. Like from small kid time, my some of my earliest things was like, how do I help this community? How do I help the world
Mm-hmm.
be better? Right. And as I've gotten older, and I've talked about this with people a lot over the years, but in this podcast as well, if we steer away from a sense of what's right and wrong versus like what's healthy, and the reality is like you can always continue to work on your health. And I think with healing, it's the same thing. Like I'm from a generation
Mm-hmm.
before you, right? There's things that I think resonate certainly that are like human experience, and there's things that are different too. But being a little bit older and kind of listening to you and like rewinding and looking at where I was, I commend you for at such a young age, at least having the courage to go on the path and explore it. I think for me, I was driven by similar things, but I was immersed in so much fear. I was also doing a lot of just like self medicating and numbing to like not face and deal
Mm-hmm.
with trauma, right? I think you hit the nail on the head where you talked on the things that we as a collective like experience, and especially like in families and in cultures can get passed down. But also there's just the individual traumas that we experience like in our journeys, and everyone has that regardless of who you are, where you're from, what walk of life you come from. And that's something that as I've gone on the journey, I think I've really come to respect and allow for myself and for others. And I think when I interact with people, one thing I try to do is just create and hold a space that ultimately is rooted in a sacred Pono kind of vibe, but also one which allows whatever is in the moment. And you and I, we were texting like maybe a
Mm-hmm.
week or two ago, and I don't know why, but that thought that I shared with you about the moment, that's one thing that I've reflected on from when I was your age to now. The moment, whatever moment you have, like ultimately, if you can be immersed in that, that's enlightenment. That is really what truth is. So it doesn't matter what you did before. It doesn't matter what comes next. A lot of times we get so stuck up here between our ears. We're getting on the wrong trains. We're getting off on the wrong stops, right? So it's hard to see when you're in it, and especially if you're feeling it. And believe you me, I have really rough seasons still. I gotta say that I think as you continue and with what you have, just the feeling that I get from your vibe and your words is that you're gonna go in a really good direction. And just stay on that, see where it leads, and don't ever feel like you shouldn't try. I think sometimes we put up barriers and we're like, what I realize is I can't do this or I can't do that. It's like, nah, like you need all of those pieces. Like you're a skateboarder, like when you first got on the board, you probably fell quite a bit. You probably fell more than you do now. And the reality is even though
Still falling.
exactly, that's the thing, you just got to keep trying. You got to just keep going,
Mm-hmm.
right? Props to you. And definitely, I think like just free yourself to be on that and that discovery. You're human, you're going to make mistakes, but you're coming from a place of wanting something greater and healthier for more than just yourself. And I gotta think that there's gonna be good things that
Mm-hmm.
happen.
I really appreciate what you said when like comes to like awareness. I had therapy this week, and it was like my therapist posed this question like, how do we show up to someone we love when we're stressed? And like typically is like take awareness, like just ask yourself, are you centered? Because it's like take a moment, check in with yourself, what your body is communicating. And this is why I love skateboarding, because it's like you brought up fear. This is one of the scariest sports I ever will do, because it's you only against a ledge or a set of stairs. Your body's communicating to you. It taught me to actually be aware of where I'm putting my stresses and all of my tension, because typically you want your pressure to be on your board. And when I'm scared, none of it goes on my board. It's in my shoulders. So it's like we have to be aware and listen to our body and redirect that energy and all of the pressure to where we need it to be. So like it says, wherever our brain goes, it will affect our energy. We have the power to redirect our energy and our.
Guaranteed.
The way that it was stated and said, I was like, that lines up with skateboarding, but not even just skateboarding. It applies to creativity. It applies to just life in general, how we show up for ourselves and how we talk to ourselves is typically how we talk to others eventually. Because if we talk inside, it's gonna spill out. And I've experienced that so many times. That's why I wanted to start healing at a young age, because it's like I know the actions and behaviors I did before is like I know that's not what I want. This is how do I get better? And therapy was one of the options I had. I didn't even know that I could get it for free. I work in education, so educators get it for free, and I was like, how come I
Mm.
didn't know about this earlier? And like usually you gotta sign up, but like my therapist just like took me on that one day, and I was just like, there we went. We've been doing it for over 2 years already.
It's another kind of parallel. I've been in and out of
Mm-hmm.
therapy as an adult, and I'm a big believer in the value of therapy. And so, props to you for committing to it at such a young age and sticking through. In my current journey with my therapist, I've just over 2 years. I met my therapist, actually, just under 2 years. I met my therapist in February
Mm-hmm.
2022, and it came at just the exactly right moment, and I've been doing a lot of deeper diving. It's interesting to hear you talking about healing, because healing for me is something too that I've committed to early, and I continue to work and improve and evolve. And one thing in therapy is the things that you uncover. I mean, you might think that you've unpacked a lot of different things, and maybe you unpacked one room, but the reality is there's a whole nother room with other boxes. And oh, some of the stuff that was in the other room got packed in the boxes and
Mm-hmm.
ended up over here. So therapy it's a lot of work, but it's super worthwhile. I find great value in it. So if you're doing that, that's awesome. And something I think people a lot of times think and do is we feel like, and I used to think about this when it came to my spiritual path. I would use the joke. It was like
Mm-hmm.
the hokey pokey, right? Like, oh, right hand's in, shake it about, I'm saved. Left foot's in, I'm saved. But the reality is, you gotta just be all in it and always in it, and continue to work and not get yourself discouraged if some days are better than others. And I think that's one of the really hard ones. And that's a lesson that my dad illustrated to my brother and I early on, but only in being, where I'm at in life and experiencing a lot of seasons of loss and different forms of grief and just getting older does it really make more sense too. Because, it's interesting you use the shoulder analogy too. Yeah. A lot of times we carry stuff that we don't need to carry. And something one of my friends told me a while ago was, the older you get, the more you realize you just can't keep holding on to it. Like you don't have space, you don't have energy, you don't have room, and ultimately we don't have time. Like the amount of time that I just look back in my own life that I wasted. Not that I think it's a bad or negative thing to like suffer from anxiety or have depression. Like I don't think it's waste if you're in that pocket. But what I think the waste is, it's like where you get stuck in these negative cycles that don't allow you to see what it is. Because I'm a big believer, if you feel something, happy, angry, sad, whatever, you got to feel it fully, and only if you feel it fully can you move into the next
Mm-hmm.
space, the healthier space, right? Because the reality is we as humans, we're meant to feel all these different things. If we were only spiritual beings, we wouldn't have the
Mm-hmm.
human experience. But that's it do as humans, we need to like tap into those other deeper, more holistic aspects of who we are. We're not just physical bodies wandering about procreating and eating and destroying, right? So there's a lot to it. And therapy is something that is, I can go on for days about how valuable I think it is. But again, props to you, bro. It sounds like to me, and I don't know if you see this or not, but you're doing the work and you're doing the inner work, and then you're finding ways to bring light and share it outside as well. So you're doing the outer work too, which is
I
super
appreciate that
commendable.
because it's like some days I'm like, oh, bro, I'm like, am I doing anything? Have I changed? And then like certain times I'm just doing the same thing. Or, like this behavior is still here. Like when you brought up like when you open the door, like the boxes are moving. I immediately thought like, oh, I want to like illustrate this. I want to be like draw like a grid pattern. Like each door is like it's like a square box, and every room you go into, it's still connected, no matter what. It's like, oh, you thought, oh, it's like, oh, you
Hmm.
thought you closed the door. It's like, no, they still can open. Like no matter what, it's like you think we came over and like that's okay. It was like we showed up a little bit different this time, but little remnants. Like how like to me healing is showing up a little bit different every time because it's like we have to uncondition these things. Like we can't get all the boxes out one time. We're like we can't. It's when we choose to do it too. Like a lot of times, like I see the value of therapy, and that's why I want to create gem breakers. And like, so how do I express people this way in order for people to value it as much as I do? It's like, how do I do that through skateboarding? How can I put it in a way where it's their choice? Because it's like I didn't go to therapy until I really wanted to. I was like, I really want to just be better the next time. So it's like, what do I do to get better? What tools can I use, or what are available to me? It's like the path isn't as laid out as we think it is, and it's like that's totally normal. Okay, what we gonna do now? Where we gonna go?
I think, well, I have a lot of thoughts there, but in terms of the path, there's this analogy that I've heard before, and it's like whenever
Mm-hmm.
you're a pathfinder, you up front, you're the one that's chopping down, the brush. You're the one that's paving the way. So in that regards, it's not defined. It's not as laid out as you would think. But I do think if we work and connect with our intuition, there are little things that come us that
Mm-hmm.
guide us and direct us. Yeah. So for you, all you got to do is just live in your truth and keep discovering. And I think leading with a willingness to be vulnerable, which I feel like you illustrate in the content in your work, like that's how you inspire others. And that at the end of the day, you can lead the horse to water, right? We hear that throughout our lives, but it's true. So all you got to worry about is just you doing the work in your way, and how you feel that in each season, in each chapter of your life, it's supposed to manifest. And then from there, it's up for those people who you touch to do work on their own, and you don't know where it'll take them. It could take someone where, like, hey, all they need is just that little pick me up, but they're not going to go out and start a brand, they're not going to go to therapy, but that little pick me up like allows them to be kinder in their life. It could be that they're so moved by what you're doing that they're like, hey, like, I want to dive deeper too. And that's cool. Like, everyone's journey is different, everyone's path is different. But I think for people who are pathfinders, it is challenging because there's definitely not a blueprint. But that said, I do think we do have that, I would say, like an inner GPS that'll guide you. And that's where, even more so, as you heal, holistically, and as you get more connected. And part of the beauty of being an artist is we walk in multiple worlds. We walk in this physical world, but we also walk in like a world of inspiration too. And a lot of times we draw inspiration from answering the question of, how do I heal this pain? How do I take this mess and make it beautiful? Right. And that's a powerful ability, I think. And not everybody is wired for that. But on the flip side, like, I'm not wired to be an accountant.
Me neither.
I'm super stoked on people that are wired for that. So if we just step back and, like, how our ancestors did, trust and respect nature, trust and respect the universe, trust and respect the divine, however that is defined, for each, and respect those differences between different cultures. Things, you start to realize things are a lot better integrated, and have a way of working themselves
Hmm.
out and flow too.
And
Yeah.
like by you bringing up ancestors, so I want to, with my nonprofit Gem Breakers, I want to do workshops and classes to show like having ethical design with Hawaii context. And like I want to give them 3D modeling skills to design skate parks with, to bring in native Hawaiian fauna. I want trees. I want, maybe we can have a lo'i patch in it, and it's just like having that more consideration of the land rather than just slacking down a street plaza. More intentionality behind it. One, to give them the skills to be able to understand their connection with their heritage, and also just moving forward with the skills and tools that we have today. It's like, how do we find this balance? And that's what I'm doing right now. It's like, okay, how do I work with the kids? How do I heal myself? How do I make them realize it? Like you said, we're pathfinders, and there's like something like, oh, okay, there's more energy this way. It's like maybe I lean in more into that. It's like, okay, maybe stop. So like, it's like we're like rivers. We're like water. We're slowly carving out. It's just the beginning, and it takes time. And it's like we have to be patient with ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw something else out there too. These challenges that you're facing, yeah, like especially as someone who is already in a place where you're teaching and you're guiding, and as you go on this journey where you have a nonprofit, and hearing you share just even just a little bit about your vision for it, which is super awesome. First thing that comes to mind, I think the world is ripe and ready for that. People are seeking on a deeper level and seeking more than just a physical thirst. I believe there's an inner thirst, and there's different forms to feed that and nourish that. And hearing you talk about that, seeing the work that
Mm-hmm.
Purple Maya does, right? For example, and I know we chatted offline about that too, but exactly those kind of offerings and helping people to reconnect and find a way, like that is a form of healing. That's also something I did some work this past year with an agency, and one of our clients was through Kamehameha schools, and I got a lot of time to talk to the two leads on that account. And something they would always talk about was how, like, don't speak about Hawaiian culture. We don't want people to speak about Hawaiian culture like it's antiquated or it's gone. It's still living, it's still thriving. So part of what you're saying too, I think there's many different ways to showcase that it is still alive. And one of the most beautiful things to me and inspirational things to me about the Hawaiian culture and the Hawaiian way of moving was innovation, wayfaring. You talk about pathfinding and going across into the unknown, navigating via the stars over like the open ocean, which can be extremely, chaotic and uncertain, right? But finding a way to do it, finding a way to move people and discover new things, right? So there was a sense of embracing the change
Mm-hmm.
and the ebb and flow. And I think that just by giving people the underpinnings, the tools, like how to operate with a culture based mentality, like that'll do a lot to move people forward. And the other thing I wanted to share too is, what if the struggles that you're facing and these frustrations and these challenges that you're facing, it's not even like, I mean, they are yours and they're very real, but perhaps what it'll allow you to do and be is to be a more compassionate
Mm-hmm.
leader in the future, and also to be able to relate and resonate with people who, when they're coming around, you're gonna have this similar conversation from the other lens. You're gonna be 20 years from now, and you're gonna be talking to some younger person, and you're gonna be able to be like, you know what? When I started Gem Breakers, like these are some of the things that I saw, and this
Mm-hmm.
is how it evolved. That same thing. Like if you started it and you're evolving it to nonprofit, that's awesome. You realize like, okay, this is where I want to go. And so it's part of it for us, I think, is people. It's going back to the idea of the moment being perfect as it is, right? It's just reframing and realizing that we need all of those pieces for the picture to be whole. And our life and our journey, all these moments, they contribute to this one large moment that really is just the breath of our life. None of us know how long we got. None of us know like what's next. I mean, we have ideas, we can speculate, but when you're in this
Mm-hmm.
body, that's where you are. So all these things that you're having, these headaches, these things, like maybe it's just like, well, you know what, I know this is a headache, but it's actually a gift, right? And so it's just things like that, and that's something too. Is I've continued on that I've really been working on reframing, because like I said, certainly I can have some pretty low seasons and low days, but the trick is not getting stuck in it, which I'm really good at. What I'm working on thriving at is moving beyond. You said survive earlier. I don't want to just survive, I want to
Mm-hmm.
thrive. What does that look like?
Absolutely.
you
It's
know
like I was living like someone else's life put onto me by others, and it's just like I'm not trying to survive. I just want to, like you said, thrive. And like I've been putting in myself into places. I've been helping with Purple Maya, Hawaii Walls, and formerly known as Powwow. And it's like every common denominator is like you don't want just to live bare minimums. We want to thrive in it. It's like if you can sustain locally, you go thrive globally. You take care of the ones here, you can take care of everybody else, and that ties back into us. You take care of yourself, you can take care of others. And
yeah,
mm-hmm, it's
100%.
reconnecting. It's like I love the framework and like reframing. It's like I had parts of my names that I typically don't tell other people. Come to find out when I looked up what the name means. Like my middle name is Lance. I had disdain, and I would look at it in a way that I hated. And then I looked up the name. It's derived from French, but it also meant land. My first name is Koa. It's a tree. Without land, the tree wouldn't grow. So it's like I'm reframing it. I'm just like, how do I look at it? How do I
That's powerful.
look at it in a different way to connect it? Because it's like I never looked at my name like that. All I had was Koa Kuroda. And when I looked at it, because I've been part of this group called the Ku Connect with my mentor and friend Will and my friend Jesse, and it's like we're deep diving into what our names even mean. It's like, what does it mean to you? It's like just because someone gave them to you doesn't mean you have to have that relation to them. If it's still tied, it's like you choose how you connect with that name. I was like, that brings your agency back to you. That's the whole thing why I started doing it. And you brought up stories and how I'm gonna connect it to. I help out with creative media and like community theater at my job, and everything that revolves back to the beginning of stories was the humanity in it. I started my company, Imprint, and transform into Gembreakers simply just to become a better human, like creating space for myself so I can have space for others. How do I do that? By being actual, doing it to myself, talking to myself nicer, giving myself time to breathe and relax and be aware of what I'm doing.
Yeah, my teacher would say you're on the journey into knowing who you really are. And I like in another analogy someone shared with me. I mean, you're on it, bro, and you're in such a great place. I'm sure at times it doesn't feel like that, but to hear and feel just how the words that you're saying, it's solid, and to be that solid at this point in your life, it's only going to get better as long as you continue to commit to do the work. And that's the thing, the hard work is within. It's not actually all this stuff outside. Yeah. There's this show on Netflix right now called
Mm.
Love on the Spectrum. My wife and I, we watched the first season and we really liked it, and the second season just came out. And there's one young man, I think his name is Tanner. They feature him, and it's people on different sides of the neurological spectrum, right? And he and all of them are seeking companionship, love, right? So it shows them on these dating journeys, figuring things out. But when you meet him, he's just got this hugest smile. He's super happy, and how I think he relates at least to what we're talking about. One thing that blew me away was, like, he had a job. He goes to a hotel. He's cleaning the windows, and that smile he has, it doesn't go away. Like he's there. He's loving it. He's just so full of joy. And so many times, right, if we wake up, and you said something earlier too, like the power of the mind and where's it goes. If you wake up and you're like, oh, I gotta work, today's gonna suck, that's the intention and the
Mm-hmm.
vibe you set for like what you're gonna walk and flow into. And to see someone who, they wake up and they're just so happy, they're grateful, and then to enjoy just the simplest of tasks which are also valuable. And something, my wife and I talked about recently, and I shared in an earlier episode of this podcast. It goes back to college for me. I had a professor who said, if people would just do what they loved, the world would be a lot better. And you would have people who love to clean and it makes them happy, and they would be stoked and they would be thriving if that's what they did. And you have people that probably love to play music that don't give themselves that freedom or that authority to go out in the world and do it because of the stuff that they put on, or these senses of like, I'm not good enough, how will it be received? And that's really sad and unfortunate, because you go back to the idea of time. Time doesn't stop for anyone, and there's only so much time for each of us. So it's just, I'm excited to see where you take and evolve in this chapter, and then hearing to more about the different things that you're involved in. It's really, the only limitation that you have would be the ones that you put on yourself. It's not going to be the resources out there, because you know what, there's ways to get funding. There's ways to get a brand and a message out there. And the other aspect of it too is, if you're in a process of building, like say right now you're building the space, I'm going to use a metaphor. You're building a place and a space for people to come. It just depends on the capacity. Maybe the capacity is meant to be like something that's, standing room only, 1,000 seats, and extra on the side. Maybe it's like a small room that's like 5 seats. But if you're building, it takes time for the structure to get complete before you can like really bring that full audience in. Yeah, so just keep building, just keep seeing, because it's doing, at the end of it, it's doing something healing for you. And to the point you made, or as well, like if you're healed, there's that comment that's been making the circles, and hurt people,
Mm-hmm.
heal people, right? And that's been going on for a couple of years now. I've heard it said on a couple different levels, from people I know, who are kind of like in a healing space, and then even celebrities that have talked about it. So it's really, it's about you. It's about what you're doing with your journey. And if you know already that you can set the vibe for the day, for a season, then that's where the work is. That's where
Mm-hmm.
you lean
I
into it.
really love and appreciate that you said it's like the, well, I forget, but it's like if people could do what they love, then they'd be happy. Is that like what you said, right? And like I literally created, like I
Yep.
wrote it down. I was like, never thought about it that way, and it was like I've been saying it, like Gen Breakers gives me the space to do the things I want to do, and that's what finally realized this week too. I was like, it gives me the space to do the things that I love, because I grew up in a space where like I was kind of sheltered, didn't go outside, couldn't escape, but I always knew it. I wanted to do it. Then I got introduced to powwow because my friend took me out, and it's like this is the things I wanted to do, but the way that I was raised, and it's just like, just give up on that. You're not gonna get there. You just go be a consumer of it, and then it's like, nah, I can't do that. I can show up and make the opportunities and do what I love, and that's why I was posed with a question. I help out with this cohort at work every Tuesday, and they ask, like, they show the wheels of emotion. It's like, which emotion did you not connect to the most growing up? I looked at all of them. I was like, I had a lot of shame. I had a lot of anger. But then I looked at, it's like in the left hand corner, there's love. And right underneath love was passion. I was like, oh, frick. That's unfortunate to see, but I'm acknowledging it without shaming myself. Just a bit disappointed. And it's like, okay, so it's like, that led me, and that same day, my Emily, my partner, she asked me that question. It's like, who do you want Gen Breakers to be, to come, people to come for, you or the brand? And it just like evolved. It was like for people to have their passion and their love and connected to every single community that they're part of. That's why I love skateboarding. I love art. I love music. I love education, because it's all the things that I love, and because it's the reason being better humans. You do the things that you love, everyone's freaking happy. A lot of times people don't even know what they love because they've been shamed into doing things that they don't like, because someone wanted to put their life onto it, holding the unnecessary responsibilities and energy when no one asked them for it. I didn't ask for these responsibilities. I didn't ask for this energy, but that's what I got, and I held on to it. Now I'm just at this stage. I'm just like, okay, let go of that. Let's go do what I like, and that's okay because if I do what I like, I will be able to make you do what you like by showing through action.
My teacher would always tell me that we choose where we're born. So her belief, as a soul going through the journey, you choose your parents. So in a way, you
Mm.
choose your traumas. You choose these things, right? So I share that because on a deeper level, your spirit, who knows, right? Like I hear you. Like there's a lot of times where I feel like, especially being someone who's also very mixed, and throughout my life, I heard "fu haole," and this is a place that I love and I feel connected to on a deep spiritual, just holistic level. I think everything about me resonates with these islands and this place, right? And especially as I've gotten the chance to learn from different kumu and different kapuna, and how much I've infused that into my way of being and moving, right? And I struggled a lot in, to hear you talk about earlier, to the name, right? Like I would only want to see part of my identity, but the reality is like, and at this stage of my life, I'm gonna be 44 this year. I'm like, which is crazy to me, so crazy to me. But it's taken all the different things and all the different facets to just really see and feel. And then for me, so you talk about Gen Breakers, what it's about. For me, so what? So speak from A to Z, dive in on that depth, connect on that soul level. And that's something that I believe, at least, that each person, all of nature, there's a soul, there's something that courses through, and we're connected in that thread, whether we can see it or not. Like if you really dive deep, you can feel it up. So when I pan out and I look at it, and similar to what you're saying, being a healthier person, better world, I go back to when I was a kid. I wanted to just Indiana Jones, pirate, pro wrestler, help people. These things rotated, this thing didn't. As I started studying dream interpretation, it was adventure and service. It was realizing that. And when I started vibing more in that direction, that's really where I started to feel more free. And I was hesitant to tell people that I was a writer, and to this day, like I actually have published books. I don't always tell people I'm an author, and I don't always talk about it. I judge my artwork all the time. I was just talking with another artist that I work with through work, and I was just like, yeah, I was looking at this painting that I did, and I was like, oh, this is crap. And that's just part of it. That's just these things. And something I read recently too was, don't think of it as like, oh, that's not good enough. Think of it as you're practicing for what you're going to implement next. And when I look at all the different chapters of life, so for you at Gem Breakers, coming out the gate, starting it, you've created this space for yourself. Now you're moving into a place where you're going to create an even greater space for other people. You needed all these things to identify and see where it goes. And I see those same things with like the different journeys of me as an artist, as a human, and just even to not allowing myself to just feel and be loving. And I love that you said too, when you look earlier, you see that there's love there as well. I think a lot of times it's hard to feel love from other people if we don't really know how to love ourselves. And
Totally agree.
you don't necessarily, when you're a kid, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it. And it takes life, it takes experience, it takes different perspectives to really be able to articulate what that is for each of us, and individually what that's like. And I think going back to doing what you love, it's also being able to like live from a place of love. We can't really do what we love if we don't really love ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. I was talking the other day with a friend, and I've heard her say this a couple of times, but she was like, oh, it's a grind
Mm.
season. So you know what? If it is a grind season for you, like just remember, like that's not gonna be grind life. It's everything has a season. So beyond that, there could be a season where you enjoying, you sitting back, you relaxing. I think the challenge that a lot of us face in the Hawaiian Islands and other places like this, isolation is a part of it, but the other aspect is we're so blessed with beautiful weather and climate and nature that we forget that there are seasons, even though there are seasons. Like I love February because to me historically it's always been like the coldest time here, and I love that aspect of it. And we're still subject to those changes and those energies and those flows, right? So we're disconnected, I think, from a lot of ritual, a lot of ways of moving and being in a way that previously earlier people really embraced and really embodied. And at the simplest level, and maybe even the most complex level, life
Mm-hmm.
life is energy. Yeah, energy cannot be created and destroyed. So if it cannot be created and destroyed, where does it go? And if you need to move it, how do you move it? And that's the beauty and the power of our myths, of ritual, because they helped us to move and to understand, and I think develop a more natural way of being and vibrating. And that's just part of what people right now are rediscovering. And I think that's why the work that you're looking to do is really going to be impactful, because in a way, and one of my kumu, when he talked about sharing his teachings, his his kumu told him the mango is ripe, and the symbolism of that was that the time was right. The time was right to go out and to share, and prior to that, they didn't share because people weren't ready, wouldn't know what to do with it, probably wouldn't appreciate it or value it in the way that it's meant to be valued. Everything has a purpose to it, and I think that's something that I continue to find as I go
Mm-hmm.
deeper on the journey too.
Yeah, I resonated with a lot of what you said. Is like being mixed, reconnecting, finding when the time is right. So many things. I'm like, I was sometimes if I'm looking down, I'm like, oh, I'm writing stuff down. I just wrote like the one you said earlier, like where we choose to be born. It's like I wasn't born here, so people think I was born here because how I talk. Because I came here when I was 6. I was born in North Carolina, and then it's like connecting to my Hawaiian. It's like I'm writing down like a graphic novel I want to do. Like my first memories is looking up at these. I had a map of the USA and the world map. And my mom always made sure, she said, that's where I was born, and that's you get Hawaiian too, even though you were born here. So it's like, but when I came down here, we did nothing to do with our my heritage or anything. I don't know anything about my Filipino side. I kind of know my Japanese side, and how my Hawaiian side got to me was like we still did nothing to perpetuate it, to nourish it. So I didn't know what to do. It's like you tell me to be proud of all of this. When we come down here, we moved and we do nothing other than do something else. It's like, how come? And it's like, but like how I said with the name, it's like you choose your relationship with it, and like this is my home. This is where I was born in a sense, because I choose to be born here because it's like that's where I lived my life. This is my home. Waianae is my hometown. It's like that's where I actually was aware of what's been happening around me. I rarely have any memories. I was aware for bits and pieces, but like the most awareness I had was ever and only down in Hawaii for majority of my life. So it's like I don't care. Like I care enough to say that this is my home. Like I choose that this is my home, and it's like back again to like the pathfinders and everything. How it changes. Like how do I do that for myself to show that, to reconnect to it, like the navigators and Hawaii. It's like all of these things I want to reconnect to. It's just like, okay, how do we do it? But it's like there's so many things I want to say, and it's like how do I express it? But that's just a whole part of learning too.
Hey,
Just like, you
yeah,
know,
you figuring it out.
I ain't go shame myself. Like I bring shame up a lot because it's like I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I learned about 2-3 weeks ago the difference between shame and disappointment. Like shame, like you just that bad person because you did this. There's no room for growth. Disappointment has that room for growth. It's like it separates you from the behavior and the action. It's like, okay, I don't like that. How to do it better next time. And when I bring up Avatar: The Last Airbender is because Uncle Iroh said pride is not the opposite of shame, but its source. So it's like the reason why we always so proud is because we were shamed for just being ourselves. We weren't allowed to be ourselves. It's like this is why we have this pride. It's like some might say, "Oh, that's a bad thing for have pride," but it's like not really, because we just being ourselves and we're gonna keep being ourselves no matter what. So it's like it's just, yeah, it's a lesson to learn to like have that balance of pride, like, but it's just like also still have it, because it's like I'm not gonna be shamed into being something you want me to be. Because it's like people tell you, oh, like this is what you are. I was like, nah, I'm not just some boy from Wine that does what everyone else tells him to do. I'll go do what I like, and I'm not gonna be apologetic or anything. I'm just gonna keep doing what I want to do, keep making and creating community around the things I like. Some people will have their opinions, but it's like my opinion is not not tied to my identity, because I allow my opinions to change, because I want to have different perspectives.
Yeah, we as people can waste a lot of time getting caught up with
Mm-hmm.
other people's stuff. And you said earlier too, like how growing up, people put things on you. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you reach a point in the journey, and we talked about this earlier. You just realize like, what do I have space to carry? Like what can fit in my arms, and then what's my kuleana? Like, who am I responsible to? What am I here to do? And it's just that ebb and flow. Ultimately, my teacher, something she would often say was, if you're the more conscious person, you got to come from the more conscious space. So other people I've hurt, and the fact that you're over there and you're learning and you're understanding, you're hurt, you're learning to better define what the emotions that you have are. That's putting you in a place where your consciousness is getting expanded. You're probably going to get more hate in your life. You're probably going to get more people who are going to do things, but you don't even need to spend any energy, because the reality is just put yourself in the sense of how your hurt feels, like where that's coming from for those people, is they're hurting too, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged or unacknowledged. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who have inherited, and I think this is what makes what you want to do so powerful. There's a lot of people who have inherited generational trauma, cultural trauma, and don't know what to do with it. They're hurting, they're angry, they're frustrated because of stuff they experienced in childhood, because of stuff their ancestors experienced that got passed down energetically via their DNA, and they don't know where to put it. They don't know where to transform it. Yeah. And honestly, Brad, like, I think if you were born here, like, biologically born here, I don't think you'd be the person that you are. I
Well,
think having those experiences, like small kid time, where your mom would like imprint it upon you, like, hey, this is who you are, this is where you're from, and then coming here and like having that sense of like, hey, wait a minute, this is where I'm from, but this sense of curiosity, how do I dive deeper into that? And that's what I mean earlier too, about everything that happens to us. Everything is a gift. And whether it's waking up first thing in the morning and you got that sense of breath, whether it's you not hurting like physically, whether, hey, you ate, like, you had a meal today, that's more than a lot of people around the world have, right? And you just build from there, and you just keep going, and you just keep seeing, and eventually, I think part of life too, a lot of it is just showing up. We talk about work, right? You want to get paid, you got to show up. I
yeah.
mean, you want to be able to take care of what you got to do, you got to show up. And it's the same thing on a deeper level with the work that we're probably most passionate about. I'm in a place where I'm really fortunate that I have a career that I'm very passionate about, and I work for a company that aligns a lot with my values, and I believe in what they're doing, and I see the impact of how they're trying to create and move through the world and create change, help people, expand sustainability efforts. So I'm super stoked on it, and I'm very fortunate, and I feel very grateful for that. And it took a long time for me to go on that journey, and honestly, like, I was away from there for a year, and then I'm back, like, just because of circumstances and thing. But that said, like, all the different things I've been through. And I've had choke jobs. And I was a kid. What do you want to do? You know what? 40 jobs and be a writer. So the artist in me had to go out and experience everything to be the better writer, the better storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone on that, and I've dived in all the different chapters, and I've seen all the different things. I think it has put me in a position where I can better articulate. You said earlier you're still trying to figure out the words. That's a good thing if you're still trying to figure out the words, because you're still evolving, you're still adapting, and you're open to growth. And you know what? As you go on the journey too, there's probably a good chance you're going to have to keep reframing things as well. So
I
just
go
keep going.
I go through so many rough drafts. I still have that message on top of my Instagram account, like what Gen Breaker's about, dude, it has changed so much. I don't even know when I posted that, but it's just like even with my document, because like I have like the vision and mission of Gen Breakers, like the like real like vision mission, create a curriculum for an after school program that integrates skateboarding, art, architecture, engineering, education. That's already changed, and it keeps changing. It's just like allowing change because change is the only thing that's consistent. So it's like, oh, how come you keep changing them? Because like this is the route that I'm trying to take it on. It's like I will find a place where it is consistent, but right now as we're building, we're just putting down the blueprints. It's not solid yet to where it's like, okay, this is what I want, exactly what I want. But it's like even then, we don't know exactly what it's gonna be like. So it's like I'm allowing it to have that space to keep changing and evolving.
Mm. I I'm gonna throw a question or a thought out to
Mm-hmm.
you. What if Gen Breakers is all of the above? What if it's all those different iterations? What if it's exactly what you first said? And right now you're going through and you're also going through these changes and evolving it because it has the potential to be so much more. So, we go back to the room analogy, not just the
Mm-hmm.
rooms within ourselves, but the rooms within a brand. Like you're gonna have a brand, you're gonna have a room. You need your skate ramp on your facility, right?
Yep.
Like you're gonna need that. You're gonna need the classroom where kids can go in and dive into engineering and architecture. You're gonna need, the lo'i where kids can go and get their hands in the earth and work through that. So what if it's all of those things? And as you're going through and you're changing and you're adapting and you're getting the foundation set, you said you're laying the blueprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're getting that foundation set, and then when you have the space, then you'll bring to you the other people that can help with manifesting that vision. It doesn't need to be just you in
Yep.
doing that. Yeah. And I think too, it's the realization everything grows in its own time, and the same thing goes for us as people. A lot of times though, we feel like this sense of like, oh, I need to be somewhere else, like I'm not doing enough, and that's wasted time and wasted energy. And certainly I've done a lot of that in my life. But if you think about it from the sense of when you plant the seed, you're not going to go back the next day and see if it's already a tree. You're not going to
Yep.
go dig it up and make sure there's sprouts. You got to just nourish that thing. You got to just like put the love, make sure the nutrients are going, make sure there's light, a lot of water, right? So it's just a process, and the earlier you can start to enjoy and embrace the process as much as can, then the more liberated you're going to be. And you know what? Whether your audience is one or your audience is thousands or millions or billions, doesn't matter. Like what matters is that you're like in alignment with like living the life that that's going to make you ultimately the most fulfilled. Because if you could do that and be that, then all the other stuff takes care of itself. Like look at it. Yeah, there's people right now who have audiences of millions and they're miserable,
Mm-hmm.
or they're constant consumption cycle, or everything is just driven only by the monetary aspect of it. um it's challenging, so really if each of us spent time and energy, there's this quote from scripture, and it's like, before you can even remove the timber from thy brother's eye,
Mm-hmm.
remove, or the splinter from thy brother's eye, remove the timber from thine own eye.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. Like the more we can just rally energy and just continue to work and evolve, like don't even worry about the questions that people are asking. The other thing too that I'll share with you that has helped me as I've gone through it, it's like don't tell the world what you're gonna do, show them.
Yep.
And I remember reading that and hearing that, and I saw it like as I was like, for the longest time I wanted to publish a book and write a book, and I never thought that what I created was valuable. And it took me three manuscripts of saying the same thing using different stories and vehicles of experiences of my life, where I realized like, hey, I got the same message in each of these. And then I finally did it, and then I felt like shame. I felt all these things about it. I would go back and read it and be like, okay, this is good, this is crap, like this isn't any good, like I could have done this better. But you got to realize too, like wherever you are in any moment, all of us, that's where we were, and there's beauty in that.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to change something, go and go and channel that into the next iteration, and then eventually I think what ends up happening is you start to see that there is a whole picture, and all of those things are valid, all of those things are important and rolled up into it. So I, from my perspective, what I would say is you're in a really great space, and it's only going to get better for you. Just keep doing the work, bro. And be stoked, because and you should be proud. Not only proud about the culture and where you're from, but you should be proud that you're brave enough to go on this path. Because the easy thing would be, at the end of the day, go sit down, do nothing, don't put any energy towards this. That would be the easiest thing to do. But you're finding new ways, you're evolving, you're growing. You're doing the best that you can, and that's really, at the end of it, all any one of us can ask. We do our best, and we realize too, hey, what if you get sick, and your best is going to be different when you're sick? Or what if you have something where a loved one dies, you're dealing with grief? That's going to be a different level of best when it comes to a brand. So
Mm-hmm.
you just keep going. That's keep going, keep showing up, and eventually the load starts to lighten. And whether that's you put it down or you have capacity, eventually things start to really open up. And you know what? We deserve to be loved. We're loving beings. We deserve to live love, to share love. And at the core of it, it's and we could probably have a whole nother long episode on to live aloha. But
Mm-hmm.
we deserve to live aloha and be aloha, and to challenge the idea of what love is. Like love honestly could be yelling at somebody, because that's you
All they
love them
need.
so much, and they're acting up and they need that yelling. Or love could be holding your tongue when someone's blowing up at you, but you can tell that they're in a space that they need to just let that go. And if you react, even though you know that they're acting up or they're in the wrong, and you react, you're gonna make it worse. Like we need to redefine and relook at how we approach things. And like, to me, that's really what it comes down to. Like, if we truly want to like live and love fully, we gotta like see the whole picture.
Yep. Having the empathy and compassion for ourselves will allow us to do that for others, especially when they don't know what and how aware they are. So it's like I saw a video. It's like, oh, kind of look at them as the younger self, like, or envision them as a younger self. Like they don't know. It's like how you go treat them, you react. Was like how do we have more action and intentionality. So I was like, you was talking about the changes. I was thinking about in my head, like how I started off with blue, and then now I have this like very tan and red, which is a strong color. Now I'm like, this is one of my favorite hats right now. Like, why do I like brown? Because I feel more grounded, and like I still like orange derives from red, still strong color. It's vibrant, driving color to me. So it's like allowing that to have like space, and how am I going to express it through gem breakers? Because I was like, oh, maybe I really love brown and orange right now. It's just like maybe I go change that colors to what I want. So it's like I feel as my logo, it's like I do allow it to change, so it shows what I am expressing, like how I'm feeling, and having these things. And thank you for saying that, to be proud of what I'm doing, because quite frankly, I'm very proud of myself for even doing it, having this action. Proud of you for doing what you're doing, and like noticing and acknowledging that part of me, and like part of you is like having that drive to actually do it. Because I said I have all these ideas, but without all this knowledge, without the ideas, without action, it's just nothing. It's like, okay, get up, let's go do them. It's time. Even yesterday, my friend Eric Carveling, he's an artist who does murals. I met through Powwow. He's like, bro, I just gotta do them. I didn't like what he said, but I was like, frick, yep, you're right. I just gotta learn how sometimes. Just like play with the buttons. It's like I want to get good at these vector design programs. How you'll get good at them? It's like watch video, yeah, but it's like you still gotta do them for learn them. So have that action, and then show the world. It's like how I show the world what Gem Breakers is doing by doing it. So it's like right now it's making videos, being vulnerable on my own story, but also having my Gem Breakers side where I express the community, the art, and their stories. Having the parallels, like it's not separate, even though it's on two different accounts. They're running alongside each other, no matter what. Because Gem Breakers is very much from me. It will always be from me, and I want to bring others onto it. That's why I'm glad I'm here right now. This is just another form or vehicles for doing. Glad I have this opportunity to be here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you the willingness to be vulnerable. I know it's not for everybody. You know, I've talked to other
Yeah,
people that do things and I get hesitancy, like, oh nah, I don't want to do that.
that's
I don't
valid.
want people to think about me, and it is. But I guess what I see too is the story is what's important, and the story can be a light for people who need it.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of people. I said this earlier. A lot of people are thirsty, and on a deep level, and they don't know why. And how are you going to quench that thirst? You got to make sure you fill the cup and you give people what they need. Yeah. So I think what you're doing is super amazing. I appreciate you even willing to want to like talk stories in this kind of forum and format. You actually answered all the questions that I went over with you at a time, but I do have a couple quick rapid
Yeah.
fire questions to wind this down.
Mm-hmm.
So you ready?
Yep.
Okay. What's on your playlist right now? What you listening to?
Oh, actually, this morning, my friend, Myron, he's down from Nanakuli, same road. We grew up in the same road. Never knew that, but 808 is his name. He, I was just listening to like their the BB Boys, like the Keiki, Ice Palace. I was like listening to Honey Honey this morning. It was just like on top of my like listen to it because it's similar. Been doing that. Been reconnecting like with that side. It's like listening to a lot of local guys and bands and humans.
Right on. You gotta I don't know if you heard it yet, but go listen to Dylan Pakelis from the islands.
Oh, I know him
So
too. Crazy. I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
you post about him. I was like, hey, that guy came to my school one time and we got to interview his girlfriend at Creative Mornings because I volunteer with
Yeah.
them too. So it's like crazy. It's like seeing the parallels and connections. And like they're awesome
Yeah.
people. What was the song? I'll go check
Yeah.
them out.
From the islands.
From the islands. All
Yeah.
right.
Dylan Pakele featuring Jordan T. So YK, the company I work for,
Mm-hmm.
helped to bring that song to life. Dylan and actually Kama and Jordan are all brand ambassadors. So
Right
super
on.
amazing people that we get to work with and meet. Kama's actually the one who talked to me about the grind season and the period of life too, and I was like, oh, that's
Yep.
pretty powerful. So next question:
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Interesting.
Reason like because like that's where like yeah, you can get viral at TikTok. I'm not trying to be viral, bro. It's just like you get your you're building a foundation, right? Right there, you get your holes, but you don't have none of your guidelines. Right there goes all your concrete. Instagram for me, it's more slow, and I rather it be slow because it's like I put in my guidelines. At least I know where it's gonna go. I wouldn't know what to do with that much views or that much followers. So it's like I know there's a already desire with my friends. They're like, "Oh, when you go make your shirt," because I said I was gonna make a shirt, didn't make it yet. So it's like that's my action part. But like Instagram allows me to have more deeper connections, and that's what I want. What a community. I want a deep rooted community.
Right on. Who's the most inspirational person in your life?
Oh, my girlfriend Emily. She shows me that one I can do what I love and make money off of it, and like she's the one when I see her believe in herself, I was like, oh, I can believe in myself too. Because like she knows she has those skills, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do it. It's like, okay, what skills do I need for go do what I want to do? So like, she's my biggest inspiration. All my friends like you, Jasper Wong, Jesse Velasquez, my friend Dan Burris, Will Elliott, great inspirations that I love to learn from. Oh, Noah and Lauren Gordinez, they run Creative Mornings. They're all my inspiration. Like, see, I'm like, oh, okay, they can do them. I can do them.
That's funny. I just exchanged texts with Jasper recently, but I was just talking to Noah the other day about creative mornings too.
Yeah,
So super awesome.
right
It's
on.
kind of cool too when you go on that journey and you see like the alignment. Like I often take those kind of things as like, just winks from the universe, like, hey, yeah, you're going in the right direction.
Yep.
All right. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people. What's your favorite ice cream flavor and why?
Oh, well, this is the one I eat recently. Like, I usually always go for like strawberry shortcake because it's like get the crunch. But like, there's one I've been eating recently. It's like Anything is like peanut butter. I love peanut butter. Like I don't know, thing is good. I love like Reese's peanut butter cup. Make that into a milkshake. I like ice cream, but it's like, hey, you can make me a milkshake. Like yeah, it was like peanut butter or chocolate.
Right on,
Okay.
right on. And then, okay, last question. Not so much rapid fire anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but and I'll put the links in. But where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram mostly. That's where I'm most active. So at Genbreakers, I have TikTok, I have YouTube, all Genbreakers. I don't use Twitter. I gotta refresh that, but I do have that. I have my LinkedIn. That's under my name, Koa Kuroda, and I'm trying to build more other stuff, but mainly Instagram. Getting onto that YouTube game. Yeah, find me at Instagram mostly. That's where you want to connect with me the most. I'm on there the most.
Right on. Well, you heard it from the man himself, the founder of Genbreakers, Koa. Mahalo for taking the time to be here. I will drop that link so people can get connected with you. And yeah, again, I just appreciate the vulnerability and the courage that it takes to speak so openly, not only just in something like this, but I see it in your work and I find that super inspiring. So I remember first meeting you, talking stories with you, and then you brought that to life afterwards, and it's just been so cool to kind of see the evolution, and I feel your heart in the words you write. So just
Mm-hmm.
keep going, bro. Like it's super awesome. And you never know. Like I've had a lot of people in my life randomly be like, "Hey, you know what? I might not comment or I might not like, but I read what you write. I
Yep.
see what you say." And there's people out there that are consuming it, and it's making a difference. And that's at the end of it. That's what it's about. And if you're becoming healthier and happier along the way, then that's actually really like what it's about. The other people are just a bonus, huh?
Yep. Like you say that because it's like some people they tell me like they comment because like sometimes I don't see people comment, but it's like some days no you don't need to comment because like I met I haven't seen Eric. He runs Harbor's Vintage, a thrift shop down on South Beretania. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been loving your posts. Thank you for always shouting us out." Because I was like, I love local. I'm gonna support small, but it's like it shows me that like people are looking. It's like if they like them, they comment on them, or they just read it. I forget that people can just read it. I feel like some people just swipe away, but maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it shows that people are consuming it. And I want to say a big mahalo to you for giving me this platform and inviting me on to here. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, right on, bro. Happy to have you back again in the future.
Oh yeah,
Talk stories.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Because
we
it's
got to
definitely
get into
gonna.
some of.
Mm-hmm.
I would say we got to get into some of the artwork on your decks over there.
Oh yeah, I'm planning to do my own outfit. I love Naruto. This is another good one that deals with a lot of trauma. We could go into all of that. So many things that express myself. Like I have this series too, like right here. We seen that post with like my middle school drawing of a city I wanted to make. So it's like I want to do this. I want to make my own designs. So it's like we can go so much. I have so much to tell you.
Right on. Well, we'll definitely have you circle back as we continue this journey. But hey, bro, I appreciate you. We'll be in touch, I'm sure. Mahalo.